Today we are going to mix up a palette using this color palette off of Pinterest that I have up on my iPad here. I know it's probably not looking great with my light, but this is how I mix up a custom color palette. So we'll get started here. I'll start at this one that to me is on the top. It's kind of a light turquoise. Actually, let's start down here at the bottom. I am going to take my mermaid tail Deco Art Americana paint color because that's the closest that I have on hand to that color. And you can see that it's very much more vibrant than this one. So we need to tone that down a little bit and we need to make it a little bit more blue. It's very green right now. So I'm going to take a drop of some neutral gray paint that I mixed up using raw umber, white, probably some black, and a few other colors, just to get it kind of the right neutral gray. Not too warm and not too cool. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's still pretty vibrant. So I'm going to put in some more of this neutral gray and see if we can knock that down a peg. You could do this with white, but it's going to go very pastel, and that's not what I want. I don't want to lighten the color. I want to counteract some of the saturation in it. And the easiest way to do that is to add gray. You can add whatever color is opposite on the color wheel to try to desaturate it, but that can be tricky too. So I'm looking at this and I'm looking at them next to each other, and to me it still looks like we need to make this quite a bit darker. So I'm going to get a blue out of my paints here. I'm going to take Prussian blue. And I use almost all Deco Art Americana paint. It's just almost the right consistency for what I'm going to use for my projects, but it still has pretty good saturation. So I'm mixing that up there, and that looks closer. And I think I'm going to put in another 2 drops of Prussian blue just to make it a little darker. I don't recommend buying a ton of really pastel colors of paint if you are going to be mixing them, because they already have so much white in them that you really can't change them very much because they just get too light. Okay, so that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to close that one up. Wipe off my silicone tool that I got on Amazon. These are really nice for mixing paint. And next we'll do this green here. And I'm looking at that, I kind of thought it was pretty close to the paint color Celery Shoot, but I can't find mine. So we're going to have to wing it here, which is what I do most of the time when I'm mixing paint. So I'm going to try some Sour Apple. And that is way, way, way too bright compared to the palette that we're looking at. So I'm going to put a couple of drops of gray in there. And that's actually pretty good. So that was pretty easy. Just a couple of drops of gray. So we're done with that one. And then we'll move on to the coral. Deco Art has a ton of different corals, including this one, which doesn't the name is wild berry. It doesn't make you think of coral, but if you look at it next to their other corals, you'll see the progression in that color scheme. So this one is obviously much more pink, so we need to correct that. But for our color palette here, that looks pretty close. I am going to add some gray because it is just a little bit too bright. I want to desaturate it a little bit. And I've gone a little bit too far, and I've gone a little bit too purple. So that's the blue that I have in this, that it's counteracting and making it purple. So let's get out our coral blush and see if we can change that back a little, or if we've got a disaster on our hands. Nope, disaster it is. I'm going to pause and clean this up. Okay, so I've cleaned that out a little bit. We're going to back the train up, put that wild berry in there, and I want to desaturate that a bit, but I don't really want to make it any lighter. And gray didn't work. So I guess I need to put in a drop of the opposite on the color wheel, which would be citron green. So let's see what happens. That kind of seemed to do something. Let's try a little bit more. Okay, I think I got it there. So this paint is, since there isn't any gray in there or any white, it's a different texture. So I'm just gonna put one tiny drop of this gray and a little bit more of the wild berry just to make sure that I've got enough in there. Okay, I think I like that. All right, so got that one under our belt. Now I usually make a 6-color palette, so I am probably going to do a shade lighter than one of these colors that I'm making, but we'll see what happens here. So the next one is this yellow. So I'm gonna take primary yellow, so that looks pretty close. And I'm gonna put a drop of gray in. And I don't put a ton of paint in these cups to begin with because, as you saw, you know, one bad drop and you're starting over from scratch. So I don't make a ton. I just want enough for what I'm gonna use. And that took it a little bit green, so I'm gonna put some more of primary yellow in. Okay, so it's still a bit saturated. The gray got us a little bit too green, so I think I need to put 1 drop of purple in. So I am going to get out my dioxazine purple. And I am just going to use like a smidge, a skosh. And keep your fingers crossed. Okay, I think that'll do it. Maybe need 1 more drop of purple. This is because the color is right, the saturation, it just isn't quite right. Okay, so that one is done. And we will move on to this color here, which is kind of a cool mint green, sort of turquoisey. So I'm gonna take some peacock teal here. Yeah, I'm gonna take that. Okay, so that is pretty bright. So the other color that this brings to mind on here, although this is darker, is sage mint. And I don't use this very often because, again, it's so pastel that if this color isn't it on the nose, I'm probably not going to use it. So that is still looking awfully saturated to me. So I'm going to, I think this is not going to do what I want it to do. Let's try a drop of gray. When in doubt, try a drop of gray. It'll always show you what direction it's going. And then you can kind of decide if that's what you wanted. That is not bad. Okay, so I am back and I'm putting some festive green in here to try to get it where I want it. Just having a little bit of a hard time getting this quite to the right shade. So now we've kind of gone to like a jade green color, and that's not really what I'm looking for. It's way too saturated. Maybe if we do, let's try a drop of coral blush, because that is probably about opposite on the color wheel. There we go. Okay, I'm happy with that. My last step is to usually kind of figure out what sixth color I want. I'm pretty happy with this palette. What I'll probably do is make a lighter shade of this. Although I've already got this, so maybe I'll do a lighter shade of this. So I'll do kind of a corally color and we'll see how that looks. So let's do some wild berry again. So that's where we started. And then we'll put in some coral blush. Okay, so that is certainly less red. I do like that. It's super saturated though, so we're gonna do a drop of gray. See if we can get to about where we want to be and add a little bit of white. I can get it to, and that looks like it's kind of a little bit more orange. I'm gonna put some white in because I want it to be lighter than that. It's too close to the other coral, even though the shade is different, or the hue, I guess. Okay, so that's kind of a pretty peach. I think that'll do. And that's how I took this palette and made it into this palette. Thanks for watching.